What's going on, everybody? Theo Gremminger from Player Profiler. I've been drafting in a ton of rookie drafts. I've also seen a lot of rookie draft boards that people have been sending to me. Every draft that I'm going to be referencing today has an entry fee of at least $250, and some have much, much, much higher entry fees than that. So we're talking about high stakes rookie draft intel. And there's some interesting takeaways here. A lot of the results have been very predictable, but others were slightly surprising. Use this information to crush your own rookie drafts, or if you're looking to make some trades, maybe try and play catch up with a few of these players. I have 10 big takeaways that I'm about to drop starting right now. The first big takeaway is not that surprising, but it is very interesting. It's the Michael Penix discount. Michael Penix is the least expensive top 10 quarterback in Superflex rookie drafts that we've seen in years. In two higher stakes Triflex, which is Superflex FFPC leagues, I saw Penix selected at the 205 twice in Superflex. You're talking about a top 10 quarterback that landed on what we think is an ascending offense. The problem is, as you know, there's no end date to Kirk Cousins. If Kirk Cousins' contract was ending like this year, then people could say, okay, well, there's a pathway to Michael Penix. We just don't know when he's going to get that opportunity. But if he does get that opportunity earlier than later, this price tag is going to look like an absolute steal. If the market is incorrect and the timing of a Michael Penix takeover is sooner than later, then this could be the steal of the entire draft, no matter who hits. Because you're talking about a player that's going to be playing indoors with fantasy-friendly weapons like Drake London, Bijan Robinson, and Kyle Pitts. Penix has a pathway to instant fantasy viability the moment he gets the opportunity to play. Problem is, we just don't know when that opportunity is. So Michael Penix discount, if you want him, go get him. I've actually seen a couple of managers, after Michael Penix is selected in the second round, I'm seeing managers go ahead and trade a 2025 first for him right away. And a lot of times those managers that are selecting him in the second, it's like found money for them. They're accepting that 2025 blind first and just snapping it up. So if you want to go get Michael Penix Jr., top 10 NFL draft pick with good weapons, but a hard pathway to the QB1 job, you can go get him for a 2025 first right now in your league. The next big rookie draft takeaway right now is Jaylen Wright. And Jaylen Wright is the most expensive fourth-round NFL draft pick running back that's in a crowded backfield ever in rookie drafts. He is just living in the early second round in all formats, including Superflex. He was selected as high as the 112 in a single QB league that I'm in. In 2021, we saw Michael Carter have a similar ADP as a fourth-round NFL draft pick running back, but at the time, his backfield competition was Tevin Coleman, and it was sort of a Michael Carter's going to get all these touches, let's draft him here, and he'll have RB2 viability. He actually did for a few weeks of the season, got hurt to end the year. Breece Hall's drafted the next year. He's never sort of heard from again. He's in Arizona now. But the process here is different because you have last season's RB2 overall in Raheem Mostert. You also have Devon Achane, who's an RB1 in Dynasty startups, an RB1 on underdog early best ball drafts, and probably an RB1 when we're drafting in August. Devon Achane is just a ridiculous talent. So this Jaylen Wright bet is a contingent upside play and probably a good one. Mike McDaniel factor is real. And when the Dolphins traded that future third rounder to select Wright in the fourth round, it was all the drafters needed to see. He's very fast and he is a potential league winner if he can get on the field. Right now, he looks like the RB3, but this is a bet on a potential opportunity and situation. If Raheem Mostert or Devon Achane miss time, Wright would be an instant fantasy starter. Think about it like this. Raheem Mostert goes down, they are going to use two backs. Jaylen Wright in that Raheem Mostert role, you would start him in almost every situation. If Devon Achane went down, then Jaylen Wright steps in that role. We all saw how fantasy-friendly that role would be especially with the high value touches that Devon Achane receives. So there's always the chance that even without those two things happening, Jaylen Wright could just be really, really good. That's why Miami went and traded that future third for him. That one is a harder sell. But with the contingent upside plays and two pathways to viability, I sort of get it. It's a big swing. You could potentially be sitting on a number 3 back for the entire season. But if he gets his opportunity, I think he's going to shine. If he hits big, the arguments will also be made that the round 4 running back is the new round 3 running back in the age of devaluing the position. Think about it. We see less running backs taken in the first round. Guys like Breece Hall, guys like Kenneth Walker, those guys fell to the second round. This year, we didn't have any running back selected until, pick 47 with Jonathan Brooks. The one-off was the Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs class, but I'm willing to bet that that's sort of a one-off situation. NFL really valued those two guys, not so much the position. So there'll be arguments that if Jaylen Wright's hits this year, that round 4 is sort of the new round 3, that the whole day 2 argument needs to be extended to the 4th round. But a failure to break through would be another cautionary tale in investing in day 3 running backs in rookie drafts is just not the right process. The next big takeaway that I'm seeing is Rome Odunze versus Brock Bowers. We're seeing a real battle, especially in tight end premium formats. Single QB, it's those two guys going off the board at the 3-4. Superflex, both of those guys are going inside of the top 8, and sometimes those guys go 7-8 when Drake May and JJ McCarthy go off the board before them. So it's really an interesting one. There's a great website called Fantasy Mojo run by Darren Armani that sort of tracks these high-stakes FFPC ADPs, and he posted that they were neck and neck. Brock Bowers led Rome Odunze 47% to 42.5% for who went as the number 3 overall pick in those tight end premium formats. Odunze leads Bowers 49-37 for the 4th overall pick. This is about as close as it gets. Both of these two guys are locked in at 3-4. And again, both of these guys are locked in inside of the top 8 in Superflex. So if you're in Superflex tight end premium, these two are gone by pick 8. If you're in single QB, these guys are gone by pick 4. The draft's top tight end and the number 9 overall selection at wide receiver. These two are on a win rate collision course. Both could have strong NFL and fantasy careers, but in a few years, we're going to be able to look back and say, why didn't I take Rome Odunze? Why didn't I take Brock Bowers? Usually it's not as cut and dry as both of these guys hitting. I think both these guys are tremendous talents, but at the end of the day, this is going to be a win rate collision course for us to monitor for the next few years. Now, the next big takeaway features the draft's top 2 quarterbacks, Caleb Williams and Jayden Daniels. And these guys are steaming up in all formats. Now, we knew these two would go off the board in Superflex formats early on. Williams is the unquestioned 101 in Superflex drafts. Daniels settles in as the 2nd or 3rd overall pick with Marvin Harrison Jr. mixed in Superflex. But what's interesting to see is how enthusiastic drafters are about these two players in single QB formats. Talented quarterbacks often fall in single QB settings, even if they have strong fantasy potential. Last year, for example, we saw Anthony Richardson. He fell to the 2nd round a lot in single QB formats. And CJ Stroud, he was an afterthought. Now, again, the market was incorrect on CJ Stroud, and that's been corrected this offseason in Dynasty startup prices. But still, you're talking about a top 5 quarterback in Stroud last year, completely fell in single QB leagues. Now, a year later, both those guys look like absolute steals. And this year, drafters are not going to make the same mistake with Caleb Williams and Jayden Daniels. These players are being treated as prime dynasty assets, regardless of the format. Williams is often selected in the 1st round, and he rarely falls past the 203 in any single QB league that I've seen. I've seen some drafters push Caleb Williams up to like the 105 range in single QB, right after Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, Brock Bowers go off the board, you're seeing some Caleb Williams 105 love ahead of all the draft's top running backs, ahead of wide receivers like Xavier Worthy, Brian Thomas, Ladd McConkey. So we've seen Daniels also join Williams in the first round. I see him go off the board often at like the 111, the 112, but he also settles into the middle of round 2, but that's sort of his floor. One league, I was able to get Jaden Daniels at the 207 in a 250 FFPC Dynasty League. So $250 entry, pretty high stakes Dynasty League. I was able to get him at the 207, but that's sort of the floor. Both of these, if you're playing single QB, consider taking these guys towards the end of the first round if you want to make sure you walk away with one of these two outstanding talents. Now, the next big takeaway is Marshawn Lloyd. And Marshawn Lloyd, this is a fun one because when Marshawn Lloyd was selected the NFL draft, there were some groans out there. People were upset. Marshawn Lloyd was a guy that has big-time fantasy potential, but landed behind Josh Jacobs in Green Bay. But sort of as the information starts unfolding and drafters are sort of drafting him correctly here, Green Bay seems to view Marshawn Lloyd as a handcuff plus rather than a straight-up handcuff. There's some rumblings that Marshawn Lloyd could have a weekly role. Then with the structure of Josh Jacobs' contract, Marshawn Lloyd has a pathway to being the RB1 in 2025. So he's sort of steamed up in these rookie drafts as well. The landing spot is not ideal for a high volume role, but there's a great deal of steam with Lloyd's ADP. He never, ever, ever falls out of the second round in Superflex or in single QB leagues. And occasionally he sneaks into the first round of single QB formats. I've seen him go off the board at like the 111, 112 a few times in single QB formats. He's regularly going ahead of Blake Corum, and it's sort of a Jaylen Wright versus Marshawn Lloyd. Certain leagues, Blake Corum's going to go ahead of those three, but it's sort of those three all packed together for running backs 3, 4, and 5. Again, a lot of positive early buzz on Marshawn Lloyd from Packers beat writers, and also the organization seems to like him a lot. Marshawn Lloyd, I think when we get into the summertime, he's going to be viewed as one of the top handcuffs in redraft. I think this steam's going to continue where Marshawn Lloyd's one of those players that drafters will bet on in like round 10 as a contingent upside play that they can also put into their lineup when they're in a pinch. One other significant thing that I'm seeing in some of these Dynasty rookie drafts is Jermaine Burton is taking off. He has been a post-NFL draft riser. I see him routinely selected in the second round in Superflex and in single QB leagues, and he never lasts past the first few picks of the third round. Burton is talented player. He fell to round 3, but talent-wise is probably profiles more as a round 2 guy. Big-time speed, played at Alabama, played at Georgia. The profile sort of doesn't tell half of the story when assessing his early ADP, though. Drafters are not just drafting him because he's a good player. Burton is now the contingent upside bet if T. Higgins plays elsewhere. Now, T. Higgins has to report by the middle of July. The situation is sort of similar to Josh Jacobs was last year, where Higgins wants an extension, but doesn't seem like the Bengals want to give him one. So there's a completely, outside chance that Higgins doesn't play in Cincinnati in 2024. It's a low bet, though. More likely than not, Higgins plays the season for the Bengals, but then he plays elsewhere in 2025. So Jermaine Burton is the immediate wide receiver 3 in Cincinnati. Certainly a much different player than Tyler Boyd, but in terms of the pecking order at wide receiver, Burton should step right into the Boyd role. Whether that means Jamar Chase kicks inside to the slot, who knows? But expect Jermaine Burton to be on the field a lot this year. And then his real pathway is in 2025, where he can step right into the T. Higgins role. Think about where we've been drafting T. Higgins, who was a second-round pick out of Michigan. Now you have a third-round pick, Jermaine Burton. could end up being the T. Higgins successor in 2025. The next big takeaway is people are interested in the New England new wide receiver one, but they sort of don't know what to make of it. You've got Jalen Polk and you've got Javon Baker in sort of a battle for who dynasty managers are betting on. They're taking shots on Drake May's new wide receiver one, but there's some confusion on who it may be. The Patriots took a double shot at the position. They drafted Jalen Polk early in the second round, and then they followed it up with Javon Baker in the fourth. Baker actually has a lot of buzz despite his draft capital, and it's driving his ADP up, and it's also kind of keeping Jalen Polk's ADP at an affordable range. Polk is routinely selected in like the second or third round of rookie drafts, and then as soon as Polk is selected, you see Baker go a couple picks later. And there's been a couple drafts that I've seen where Baker actually goes before Polk. Now, I don't know if that's the correct process. Just to kind of backtrack on this one, New England had the opportunity to take, guys like Ladd McConkey, Keon Coleman right in the range of their draft. They end up trading down and they take Jalen Polk. They still take Jalen Polk ahead of like Adonai Mitchell, who was a massive combine winner. So they obviously like Jalen Polk. And if we'll remember, Jalen Polk was a guy that late in the NFL draft process was being projected to be like a late first round pick by Pete Schrager of the NFL Network. So they liked Polk enough to take him there. But Javon Baker is this exciting player who had 5 catches over 50 yards last year, big play guy, sort of has that dog in him, and people are sort of betting on him from a fantasy perspective. Now, which way this goes, I don't know. But drafters are very close with these guys despite the 2-round difference. I've even seen a few drafters who have put themselves in a position to draft both of these players. They're either trade down from like the second to get an extra 3rd-round pick, and then they'll double tap these two back to back. I've seen that a couple times. Interesting way of playing this situation. Now, we haven't talked about any tight ends yet, and that's because this tight end position for this draft class has been primarily ignored, except for Brock Bowers and Ben Sinnott. And Bowers goes off the board in the first half of round 1. We talked about the Odunze versus Brock Bowers decision that a lot of drafters are making. And we sort of expected this. Like when we started this process, Brock Bowers was head and shoulders above everyone else. There was actually a little bit of a lack of clarity at who tight end 2 was going to be in this draft class. And it's sort of become Ben Sinnott in his own big tier, where Brock Bowers has his own tier, then you wait and it's Ben Sinnott. And much like Bowers, he sort of settled into his mini tier as the tight end 2 overall in this draft class. He landed in a situation where he gets drafted on day 2 in the 2nd round, gets attached to an offense that we view as an ascending one with Jaden Daniels behind center at the quarterback position. Sinnott was also a guy who had gained a lot of steam at the combine. He had an outstanding performance at the combine, tested very highly, and he was one of the leaders at the tight end position at several testing categories. Now you're starting to see him go off the board all the time in the 2nd round, sometimes the early 2nd round in rookie drafts. And he rarely lasts past the end of the 2nd round in any sort of tight end premium draft. I've seen him go as high as like the 203, 204 in heavy tight end premium superflex drafts. That's how highly people are betting on him. And the latest I saw him go in sort of a superflex format would be like the 211. He's not existing in the 3rd round right now in most of these high stakes leagues. You see Jatavian Sanders, who's usually the next tight end selected, but the waiting time between Ben Sinnott and Jatavian Sanders can sometimes be 20 picks. Now that's league to league. Some leagues it might only be a few picks between the two of them, but it's always Ben Sinnott as the tight end 2, followed up by a number of guys, usually Sanders, competing with tight end 3. It's really, really settled in at the tight end spot. Going back to the running back position, we're seeing a ton of steam with Kimani Vidal. And this one's super interesting. You can't refer to Kimani Vidal as a sleeper anymore. Those days have gone out the window. Despite being selected in the 6th round of the NFL draft, Vidal is steaming up in rookie drafts. He never falls out of the 3rd round of rookie drafts in any format. And sometimes he sneaks into the 2nd round. Drafters are betting on Kimani Vidal overcoming Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins and leading the Chargers backfield. There's been actually a few very, very high Kimani Vidal sightings. There is one $5,000 a year entry fee FFPC league. I'm not in this one, but I got the draft board. And in this particular draft, which is a single QB format league, Kimani Vidal went off at the 202. This is really high for him, but it speaks volumes to the amount of enthusiasm and steam that drafters have in getting Kimani Vidal in their rookie drafts. People are hyped to get Vidal. They are painting a picture that this is going to be an Alfred Morris type situation where he steps right in as a 6th round draft pick, overtakes the backfield, and produces. Jim Harbaugh is usually friendly to the running back position, and Greg Roman certainly is. Kimani Vidal, if you want him in your rookie drafts, do not wait. He's a guy who's somebody in your league is going to reach for. If you want him, be prepared to reach as well. And the final takeaway here is Xavier Legette. Xavier Legette was selected with the final pick in round 1 of the NFL draft to the Carolina Panthers. And despite his athletic measurables and early NFL draft capital, Legette is almost never selected in the 1st round of rookie drafts. You see Ricky Pearsall steamed up in certain leagues. Certain leagues, they'll bet on Ricky Pearsall making an impact, but Xavier Legette is one that's just falling. Sort of like Michael Penix, Xavier Legette is that guy with the 1st round draft capital, but you know you can get him in the 2nd round of your rookie drafts. I was able to get one Xavier Legette share at the 211 in a Superflex format FFPC league. It's very rare to see a player with this draft capital and an available opportunity. We're projecting Xavier Legette to step right in that wide receiver 2 spot in Carolina, or at least be in 3 wide receiver sets. We're predicting him to be on the field a lot. He has the size, has the athleticism, has the draft capital, yet drafters are letting him slide. Either he turns out to be a huge bargain, or he becomes another cautionary tale about avoiding players with his profile. And certainly there are some red flags. The late breakout, older, but those red flags did not prevent Carolina from taking him in the 1st round. And remember, they traded to get to the end of the 1st round in order to make sure they got him. So apparently New England wanted him there, and there was a couple other teams trying to trade into that back half of the 1st round. So there's a number of NFL teams who were enthusiastic about Xavier Legette, but not a whole lot of enthusiasm with dynasty managers right now. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, press the like button and make sure you subscribe to Player Profiler. I'm dropping videos like this all off-season long. We're going to help you in your dynasty leagues, your redraft leagues, your best ball leagues. We want to see you crush all leagues and win some money in 2024. Stick with us here, Player Profiler. We've got you covered with all of our shows, all of our podcasts, and anything else you need on playerprofiler.com. For all of my written work, find me there. I'm writing articles on subjects like this, and they're dropping every single week. We'll see you soon.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.